Before I start this review, I wanted to share that this YouTube channel actually now has a Discord server. If you'd like to talk video games and other things with me and people that watch my videos, please check out the link in the description. Thank you. Last year, Activision treated gamers with a nostalgia trip down the Crash Bandicoot series with Crash Bandicoot N Sane Trilogy for the PS4, a complete remake of the first three Crash games originally released for the PS1. 1 year later, Crash Bandicoot finds its way over to the Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and PC, and though the Xbox One version is expected to run similar to the PS4 version, I thought we'd take a look at the Switch version, the more apparent downscale of last year's release. Let's see if Crash Bandicoot N Sane Trilogy on Switch is still worth picking up. For the sake of not spending about 10 to 15 minutes on the entire plot of 3 games, I'm just going to give a rough summary of the Crash Bandicoot series introduction. Crash Bandicoot is a mutated Bandicoot who is created by the evil Dr. Nitrous. Dr. Cortex, who works with Dr. Nitrous, plans to make an army of mutated animals including Crash's love interest, Tawna. Being completely against the idea, Crash goes after Cortex to save Tawna, going through an assortment of different islands and boss fights along the way. It's a simple and straightforward story that really isn't part of the nature of when this game was released. You have wacky, quirky mascot characters like a big-headed evil doctor and an animal mascot, which is just about what every video game company in the 90s had. It's not the most iconic story, but Crash as a character did gain some steam, and rightfully so, with what was at the time gameplay that rivaled some of the best 3D platforming in that era. The Crash Bandicoot N Sane Trilogy consists of the first 3 games in the series originally released by Naughty Dog on the PS1. The base code for the entire series is still the same for the most part, with some slight exceptions to the physics system. This means that for better and for worse, this trilogy is a game that looks incredibly better than it did back in the 90s, but still maintains the challenging and occasionally dated game design. The gameplay of the Crash series has you playing a bolt-up Bandicoot named Crash. Levels have you running down long stretched out paths filled with obstacles, pitfalls, and enemies. The technology at the time provided a limited 3D perspective that added a unique gameplay feel, while also making for some of the most challenging level design in 2018. Looking back at it now, it feels nostalgic, but also partially limiting with the new physics engine that's been applied to all 3 games overall. All of the original game level designs remain intact with these remakes, only with updated graphics and some slight adjustments made to the physics of jumping and the momentum that comes with it. The weird thing though is that the changes to the physics were applied as a one change across the board, rather than changing the physics according to a specific level or by a per game basis. This means that some of the games truly do feel exactly like they did back in the 90s, and others feel slightly off, leading to some moments where the platforming can feel a bit slippery. It really just goes by a level basis. That's not so much to critique the gameplay of feeling too hard or too challenging. I think that was always the appeal of platformers of the past as compared to modern platformers that tend to hold your hand more frequently. The original Crash Bandicoot remains the weakest of the 3 in my opinion, with 2 coming in first and Warp coming in second. Comparing the level design jump between Crash 1 and 2 shows great improvement not only in the spacing and the camera of the game, but just the general level design. The transitions between the classic 3D perspective and the 2D perspective feels more natural and seamless without feeling clunky. As for Crash's moveset in the series, he can run, jump, spin, slide, and body slam his way through stages. You'll come across crates that you'll have to smash, Wampa fruit to collect, and of course a bunch of hazards that'll kill you in one hit. Well, unless you have an Aku Aku mask to take a hit for you. There's plenty of quality of life improvements with this remake though, and even further improvements for the PS4 version over to the Switch version. Autosaves are a modern convenience now seen with these classic games, and though it's more of a cosmetic difference than anything, being able to play as Crash's sister Coco in all 3 games is a welcome addition. As for specifically with the Switch version of the game, loading times have been significantly improved throughout the entire trilogy. PS4 took about 10 to 15 seconds to load just about anything. That means loading to the title screen, then to the game select screen, and lastly to the level select. You'd also have to repeat this process for going back to the level select, switching games, and so on. It was very tedious and a big blemish when this was originally released back on the PS4. Luckily on the Nintendo Switch, those loading times were either instant or took about 5 seconds, a noticeable upgrade that made everything just feel snappy. Now, it's no secret that the Nintendo Switch version of Crash and Sane Trilogy would need some sort of downgrade to get it running on the portable hardware. Originally, Crash Bandicoot N Sane Trilogy ran at 1080p 30 on the PS4 and 1440p 30 on the PS4 Pro. Now, although these aren't specifics, based on my time with the game so far, it looks like when playing in dock mode that the Switch version runs at 720p 30 and a lower resolution in handheld mode, somewhere along the lines of 540p and 600p 30. Oddly enough, the menus render in what looks like 720p in handheld mode and 1080p in dock mode. It's just the gameplay that comes in at a lower resolution. I did experience some minor frame rate dips on some non-standard levels, like where I was riding a vehicle or an animal, but nothing as bad as, let's say, the port of Doom on the Switch. What is more noticeable is the resolution. It's certainly a blurrier version of Crash, but at least it's stable. That performance though does come at a cost on top of the lower resolution. Ambient lighting and levels have been turned down, the fur textures on Crash are significantly lower or completely gone, and the reflections in the waters are completely turned off. It's pretty apparent that a lot of sacrifices had to be made with the Switch port, but in the end, the final product felt true to the original PS4 game. There are some more differences though, like in the colors between the PS4 and the Switch. On the Switch, colors seem to have more contrast in them, almost darker in a sense, whereas the PS4 version seems brighter and more exposed. The resolution hit was the biggest adjustment I had to get used to in terms of the visuals, but after playing through the trio of games, my focus was quickly more aimed at the challenging gameplay rather than the lower resolution.
Tell you this, you have to be careful. Trusting Cortex seems a little unwise, Crash. Crash! My battery is fried. Make yourself useful, big brother, and bring an extra battery for me.
Part of the charm of this game collection is that despite the visuals getting a major upgrade, a lot of the sound effects remain the same. It plays with the nostalgia going on with the collection and the cartoony, almost Pixar-like gameplay. The voice acting from the original game is here too, though much higher quality than the original CDs that were used on the PS1. The music tracks from the original are reprised here, and though they were never really big hits for me, like Green Hill Zone or the first level in Super Mario Bros., they were good enough and played along well with the theme of levels. I also didn't really notice any compression with the music in this game, something that tends to be more common with these larger game ports over to the Switch. There is some slight use of HD Rumble with this game when you collect up the Wampa fruits. It's subtle but nice. Crash Bandicoot N Sane Trilogy for the Nintendo Switch is a decent port over to the hybrid console that cuts some corners, though makes some improvements in the process. While it was never expected to be on par in terms of visuals with the PS4, it's a bummer to see the handheld mode on the Switch be so blurry. I am at least happy that the frame rate performance seems stable with some improved loading times. That was one of the biggest problems with Crash on the PS4, and now it's seemingly fixed on the Nintendo Switch. Now, overall, the gameplay is going to be a tough sell for those of you that aren't already into Crash. If you are into Crash, then by all means, despite being a resolution downgrade, Crash on the Switch is a completely solid way to experience this collection. However, if you're not already into the Crash Bandicoot series, you need to be aware that this is very much still a 1990s game with a visual overhaul. Platform mechanics and level design can feel dated at times, though that can definitely lend over to the challenge of the platforming too. If you're alright with that, then I think it's a worthy way to experience the trilogy for the first time, and if you're a bit uneasy with that information, then perhaps wait for this collection to go on sale. Regardless, at the current $40 price tag for all three full-blown remakes, that's a lot of value for what you pay. If I had to give it a score, I'd give it an 8 out of 10. That does it for my review of Crash Bandicoot N Sane Trilogy for the Nintendo Switch, PS4, Xbox One, and PC. If you have any questions about the game that I may have missed in this review, feel free to ask me in the comments down below or just hit me up on Twitter. If you enjoyed the video, then please give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new around here for more videos just like this, and thank you all very much for watching. Hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you all in the next one.